meet patients of all ages and backgrounds, each with unique hearing challenges. Your patient is always your first priority, but it can be demanding to stay focused when you also juggle multiple tests, shifting requirements, and clinical setups. The Equinox Evo clinical audiometer is made to enhance your workflow. It has every test you need, right at your fingertips, so you can be there for your patient. Meet Laura. Her family worries she may have a hearing loss. With its dedicated VRA workflow, the Equinox Evo gives you the freedom to focus on keeping her engaged during testing. At 4 years old, Oscar thinks play audiometry is fun. With the touch keyboard, you can be right there with him, ensuring you get the best possible results. Chris is in for his cochlear implant review. And Emily has a complex hearing loss. The Equinox Evo makes it easy to test them in the free field by shifting between multiple speaker setups. Jack can no longer follow conversations in noisy environments. Advanced tests, such as the Audible Contrast Threshold test, give you the information you need to help Jack feel connected again. Every day, you meet patients like Jack, Emily, Chris, Laura, and Oscar. With the Equinox Evo at your side and its clinical versatility at your fingertips, you can give each one of them your full attention. We say it is audiometry made evolutionary.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this introduction launch event of the Equinox Evo and touch keyboard from Interacoustics. My name is Lillian Nielsen, and I've been the product manager during the development of this product. I've done so together with my good colleague, Allan Mikkelsen, and today we have the pleasure of being your host of this introduction for the next hour. During the session here, you will have the opportunity to ask questions in the chat, and we will answer them in writing as we go through. We are very, very happy and proud that it's finally time to introduce this new audiometer. The Equinox Evo is a clinical audiometer that you can use in larger clinics and hospitals where you see patients of all ages coming in with various problems that needs to be identified and solved during the assessment. Therefore, the Equinox Evo contains a lot of different functionalities and solutions that will ease and evolve your workflow. It features not only an elegant audiometer, but a keyboard with touch and dials that can be used wirelessly. Before we go into detail with our solution, let's look at some of the challenges you may be facing in your daily work. The patient may have been referred to the clinic from newborn screening, meaning it is a child of very young age. Some may have a referral from a visit to a general practitioner with fluid in the middle ear. But it may also be a preschool or a child just starting in school facing challenges in listening and learning in school environments. Or it may be an adult facing challenges in communicating with their colleagues and families, where there may be a variety of reasons for what lies behind. Therefore, the solution we need as a clinician needs to be advanced yet flexible and simple in order to assess every patient need and support you in the challenges you are facing throughout the day. With the introduction of the Equinox Evo and the touch keyboard, it's time to step into the future of audiometry. When we at Interacoustics started looking at what the next clinical audiometer should look like, we looked at what are some of the challenges and pains the clinicians are facing today. And what can we do to provide a solution that eases and helps the clinician in their daily day. Some of the challenges that have been brought up is that the clinicians need to juggle multiple tasks and have a very advanced setup. So one of the focus points for us have been to take out some of the advanced audiometry and make it simple in use. Another element that has been provided to us by the users has been the limitations in the ergonomics of the traditional standalone audiometers, with multiple keys that are not always placed in the way that you would like them to and where they make the most sense. Yet, the core functionalities of the dials and tone switch is a must-have. The dials and tone switch are core and have an impact on the ergonomics of sitting working with the device like this all day through. Working in a larger clinic, you will quite often be in a hospital or maybe a university hospital or research hospital, where some of the new and latest research take place. That also means that there is a requirement for us to be able to take the research and science and make it available as a clinical solution. Following the need to evolve toward new technologies and solutions, the standalone audiometer has its limitations, and that is one of the reasons why we have made a PC-based clinical audiometer. So what have we done to evolve the area of clinical audiometry and overcome some of these challenges? One of the things we have done is to develop an innovative audiometer keyboard with the focus on making advanced audiometry simple. To show the functionalities of the touch keyboard, I would like to give over the word to my colleague Alan, and he will take you through some of the benefits the touch keyboard provides.
Thank you, Lilian. I am Alan Mikkelsen, Technical Product Manager with Interacoustics. Today I'm going to present the new touch keyboard from Interacoustics. So this is what it looks like, smart and versatile. I want to start by talking about the design of the touch keyboard. Ergonomics and user-friendliness were the most important topics when designing the keyboard. We wanted it to be possible to operate the keyboard with ease all day without any hand fatigue. This can be seen by some of the design elements of the keyboard. Now I'm going to dig into more details of the touch keyboard. The rotary dials on the side of the touch keyboard sits at such an angle to ensure a comfortable operating position. Below each rotary dial are two buttons, one on each side easily reachable by the thumb and one on the top. Between the two rotary dials is the touch screen. It sits at such an angle to provide a comfortable working position. When operating the touch keyboard, the touch interface shows essential information as well as the most relevant functions. The layout of the screen follows the suite. This means that the information on the screen is always relevant and that the essential functions are always at your fingertips. The touch keyboard can be operated through a wired connection as well as a wireless connection. Since the keyboard is not limited by a wired connection to the PC, it offers a high level of flexibility. You can use the keyboard in front of a computer as well as take it into, for example, a booth. Now let's look at some of the dedicated screen layouts that the touch keyboard offers. Let's start with pure tone testing. This is the layout of the tone screen. At the top of the screen, you will find all the relevant information. First, the information about the primary channel is displayed. Here, information like intensity, ear side, transducer, and stimuli are shown. Next is the central panel where the frequency information is shown. Lastly, information about the secondary channel is shown. Here you find information like stimuli, transducer, and ear side. The two white circles are the silent tone switches. These activate or deactivate the stimuli. When a stimuli is presenting, indication of this can be seen by the intensity. When the patient response button is being pressed, an indication shows the response. When a threshold is confirmed, the left button by the thumb can be pressed. This stores a threshold. Holding it down will store a no response. To change frequency, the frequency selectors at the bottom of the screen can be used. You can change ear, transducer and stimuli by pressing the drop-down for each channel. When the secondary channel needs to be turned on and off, you simply increase or decrease the intensity of the right rotary wheel. Now let's go to the speech screen. This can easily be accessed from the top menu. In speech, the upper side of the screen follows the same layout as in tone. Instead of frequency, speech score and word counter are now shown in the central section. To start and stop speech list, you can use the play, pause, stop buttons. When a speech list is playing, the words can be scored by using the correct, incorrect buttons. In case phoneme scoring is being used, these buttons will be replaced with the phoneme numbers for scoring. The current word playing is always highlighted in the center of the screen. To the right of that, you find the 2 upcoming words, and to the left, the last 2 words played. How the last 2 words that were played have been scored are indicated below the words. When a speech result has been obtained, and this needs to be saved, the store button on the screen can be used, or the button by the left thumb. If another speech list needs to be selected, this can be done via the central drop-down. Pressing the speech list selector opens an overview from where the available speech lists in the speech material can be selected. Should it be necessary to select other speech material, you can press the speech material selector. This opens an overview over the available speech material. Now let's go to the pediatric screen next. Again, you can access this from the top menu. For the pediatric screen, the upper side of the screen is similar to the one seen in tone. Here you see the information about the primary channel, the frequency, and information about the secondary channel. The silent tone switch is available on this screen as well, and the indication of stimuli is shown in the same way. Above the tone switch are VRA reinforcer controls. These are used to activate the VRA reinforcers that are connected to the suite. Depending on the way they want to be operated, they can either be pressed simultaneously with the tone switch or after the tone switch. The button next to the VRA reinforcer controls is used when Interacoustics VRA Pure is connected to the suite. This button selects the last used reward video played via the VRA Pure solution. Conditioning sets the suite into conditioning mode. This is used to condition the child to the VRA reinforcers before a threshold seeking is started. The frequency selector is available below. Below this you have an audiogram table available. This provides you with a quick overview over the threshold stored in the audiogram. The current frequency and intensity are always highlighted in green. A stored response is seen as the threshold, and a stored no response is seen as the intensities with brackets around it. The pediatric test screen allows for the use of WAV files. The different lists available can be selected via the central drop-down. Clicking on the list selector here opens an overview over the available list. In the central section, it is also possible to select different VRA Pure playlists. This provides a complete list of the available playlists available on the system. That concluded the walkthrough of some of the main screens on the touch keyboard. Throughout this introduction, the keyboard has been seen set to English. This is because of the language in the suite. The keyboard is set to follow the language of the suite. If the suite is set to French, German, Japanese, or any other language, the touch keyboard text will be displayed in the same language. The touch keyboard is of course available for the Equinox Evo, but it also can be used together with the Affinity Compact from Interacoustics. That's all from me today. Thank you for allowing me to take you through the new touch keyboard from Interacoustics. Back to you, Lillian.
Thank you, Alan. As initially mentioned, there are many things to focus on when you see multiple types of patients every day, with different needs and different degrees of complexity of hearing loss. That requires a lot of different tests and functionalities throughout the assessment and throughout the day. One of the areas we've tuned in on is the challenges you may be facing working with children. In tuning in on some of the challenges, I would like to give over the word to Lee and Amanda and Michael from our Interacoustics Academy, as they have been working with children in the clinic and they would like to share some of their experiences with us.
I'm here with Michael and Amanda, who are both paediatric audiologists who have worked in the National Health Service in the UK. And what I want to explore today is what you see as the most common challenges in testing paediatric patients in 2025.
Yeah, so I think probably the most obvious challenge with pediatrics is that they're young people with their own minds, their own preferences. And so we often have quite limited attention span. You know, with an adult, we can just keep re-instructing them and they'll generally do what we tell them to do. But with a child, it's just not that straightforward. And I think this goes for whether you're dealing with the very youngest children who we're testing with visual reinforcement audiometry. You know, they are maybe a little bit more prone to kind of moods and tiredness and how well they're feeling on that day. But generally, you know, we can try and trick them with a break or a snack to get their attention span back on, but you're limited in how much time you're going to get out of them to get your testing done. When we turn our attention to the older children who are doing play audiometry, it is a big age span. So this could go from kind of 2.5 up to 5, 6, or even 7 years old. Again, varies as they go through those different ages, but they may be a little bit more easier to instruct and try and kind of persuade and talk to. Obviously, there's stronger understanding from them, but they also might be slightly more liable to have that I am done tantrum and, you know, really just sort of stop performing and maybe get more tired because we're asking more of them. You know, we might expect more of them, so want to get more testing done, so we might push them a little bit further. So you've really got this challenge of trying to use all of the tricks and tools that we have in our arsenal, in our toolbox as audiologists, to get as much information out of them as possible. That's our goal. And we really need to use everything that we can to try and maximize their attention span, because otherwise we end up having to bring them back or we end up with unreliable results. So we're looking at getting the highest quality information out of them. And for that, we need the longest attention span, but also high quality attention span. So that's probably, I would say, one of the main challenges is, you know, it's not always guaranteed that we can get that attention span for as long as we would like it to. And that's hard work.
Yeah, and I think when we break down what actually leads us to losing the child's attention, sometimes it can be when we get distracted ourselves from the child. You know, children like to be engaged almost constantly. So if we're having to manage a lot of different things, we're making clinical decisions, maybe we're managing an audiometer if we're in a one tester setup, such as with play audiometry with the older children, it can be difficult because you just take your eyes off of the game that you're playing with the child for a moment and you can lose them in that moment. So sometimes I think one of the biggest challenges that we face, which relates very much to that idea that we need to keep that child engaged and keep their attention, is just managing all of the different things that we need to, the multitasking involved. So if we think about VRA, for example, we usually have 2 testers for VRA. In the room, you might be managing multiple things. You might be observing the child. Perhaps in some setups, you're controlling reward toys, for example, for VRA. You're playing games. You're trying to manage the parent, making sure the parent's not cueing the child. All of these kinds of things you're having to think about whilst you're in the room. And the person outside the room, potentially they've got an audiometer to control. control. Potentially they also have control over screens. Tick sheets are another thing they might need to manage, keep a record of what they're doing. And trying to keep on top of all of these things, it can sometimes feel like you need 6 pairs of arms to do it.
And all of that is whilst making the clinical decisions and trying to actually strategize your testing as well, right? So that's
absolutely.
That's so much to do in one go. Yeah.
So one of the things you mentioned was tick sheets. Now, they're quite popular in the UK, but they're not quite so popular in other areas of the world. So it might just be useful to just say a few words on what they are,
for sure,
and how they can help.
Sure. So when you're performing a visual reinforcement audiometry assessment, it's quite a subjective assessment because you're relying on the child's head turn, which is not the same from one child to another. And it's really important that we have a record of what went on during that assessment. So we use a tick sheet to note down each time that they turn their head in response to the stimulus, they get a tick. If we present a stimulus and they don't turn their head, we put a cross on the tick sheet. And we record all the other information about stimuli levels and transducers, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a record of the child's responses, but it's also a record of the audiologist, the clinician's performance, and did they actually do an appropriate testing strategy. What we don't want is audiologists to be just presenting the same stimulus over and over again in the hope that they get a head turn, because that's not scientific and accurate. So tick sheets are designed to provide that record of the assessment, but I think they can be a bit of a barrier to not only using the tick sheets, but also to performing the VRA, because it is another thing, as we mentioned, with the multitasking. It's another element that you have to do and perform and remember and consider during what can feel like a very, very busy appointment, a very busy assessment. So I get that it puts people off wanting to use them, and sometimes it puts people off doing VRA full stop because it's just too many things, too many hands, too many different controls and components that you need to keep an eye on and keep track of and make use of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with what you say about it can sometimes put people off a little bit, because I think a lot of clinicians that I've spoken to have certainly recognized the value that tick sheets bring. Yeah. And then you kind of ask the question of, well, why aren't they being implemented? Why aren't you using them? And even in my own experience, if we're trying to juggle all these things and we have things that are sort of directly affecting that patient in front of us, the temptation can be to focus on that, and then the tick sheet is kind of the one that gets lost along the way. We know it's important. We know that it helps us make better clinical decisions, and it makes our the service that we provide much more repeatable, and we can audit what we're doing better. But still it can be lost because of these difficulties that we encounter. So I think that really is a challenge, is trying to streamline everything that we're doing and all of the processes that are involved to try and allow us to do everything that we can to really deliver the best care that we can.
And as you mentioned earlier, we often lose the child's attention when we are not attending to them. So if the tick sheet ends up being a distraction from our focus on the child and on the clinical process and the test, then it is a detraction. So, I can understand people going, well, it's more important I focus on a child.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of things to take into consideration there, right? You need the child engaged, you need to juggle multiple things, and then you need to also introduce best practices such as tick sheets. So there's a lot of challenges that we still face.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for your time today. Really great insights.
Thank you.
Great input from Amanda and Michael. That indeed provides a lot of detail on what the challenges are, and we really have to consider what is a good way to support you in some of these challenges. It is, of course, some of the things we have considered when looking at what a new product like this must be capable of. The goal has been to take some of the advanced and often complicated in the workflow and make it simple in use. I would like to show you what we have done, stepping into the clinic and showing you some of what the solution provides. Alan showed you some of the basic functionality of the touch keyboard, also for the pediatric module. And Michael and Amanda highlighted the challenges of engagement of the child. and that pediatric assessment is multitasking. So here I would like to demonstrate what the solution for the pediatric module provides. As mentioned, a pediatric assessment often involves either a visual reinforcement audiometry or a play audiometry. So what is part of the solution of these two types of assessment? One is that the system comes with the opportunity to set it up with a monitor and assistant monitor headset. So out here I have a monitor headset for me, and in the booth we have an assistant monitor headset. Here we have made some improvements relative to our previous solution that allows the two clinicians to communicate with each other throughout the headsets. The second thing I would like to highlight is the integration of VRA here in the suite. It can be set up with a digital VRA pure solution from Interacoustics, as we have done here, but it can also be set up through the dedicated plug for VRA at the back of the Equinox Evo. Here you can connect one or two VRA 201 systems from Interacoustics or a third-party VRA system. Independent of which system is connected, the VRA reinforcers are present here in the suite and on the touch keyboard. In addition to that, you can use the conditioning key we have up here, which can be used throughout the session during the conditioning of the child. The third thing I would like to highlight is the automated tick sheet. You can see the trace of the tick sheet by pressing up here at the top. Independent of whether you are obtaining a tick sheet while working on the touch keyboard or in the suite, it is something that happens automatically. The benefit of that is that you don't have to pay attention to all the different elements throughout the VRA session. It's all automated. An example of what the trace can look like is shown here. Throughout the session, it will be marked as C for condition, a tick for a positive response relative to the reward provided, or a cross if there's no reaction from the child. Should you wish to adjust some of these after the session, you are able to open the tick sheet and apply changes by a right click. The next thing I want to highlight for the pediatric module, that's the ability to use different types of stimuli. Up here at the top you will see that there is an additional input next to the pediatric noise called wave file 1. When I press it, a small bar will appear, and in my list I now have two different types of stimuli. One is the Link 6 and the other one being Man-U Iro sounds. These can be used either during the VRA session for conditioning of the child or during play audiometry, where they're useful unaided or aided. Here the Link 6 sounds are well known for aided testing.
E, S, E, U.
When you see the different types of stimuli for the Link 6 sounds, as well as other sounds, you will see that they appear in a given order as shown here. They are not frequency specific as such, they are frequency filtered. And that's also why when you press store, the symbol is a dot with a dashed line instead of a threshold symbol. Quite often you don't know whether the child will respond best for the VRA assessment or play. Therefore, it's good to have all the tools in one for the pediatric assessment. And that's why we have made the pediatric module where you have access to all the different tools that you need. From here, I want to jump into play audiometry. To make it a bit more fun and interactive for the child, we provide some Link 6 blocks that can be used for play audiometry in general or during the assessment using the Link 6 sounds. We've also made a Link 6 mat that can be used to make it a bit more of a play and keep the engagement of the child. On the opposite side of the blocks, we have drawn our dinosaur, so you can build up the dinosaur during the threshold assessment. In addition to that, a playlist have been made for Dino and his friends that are also available on our VRA Pure system. so you can play a game with Dino and his friends that evolves during the testing. The last thing I would like to highlight for Play Audiometry is the ability to disconnect the keyboard and take it with you into the booth. That means that you can be close to your pediatric patient and be more aware of what it is that goes on within the booth. It also provides the opportunity, if you are not two testers, to be in there with the child to do the assessment on your own. You will still see all the information you need on the touch keyboard, including the audiogram down here, as Alan also showed. However, it is important when you bring the keyboard into the booth that you do not provide cues for the child. So that must be considered in your setup. With the wireless connection of the touch keyboard, you have a bit more flexibility in the way that you move around the child and also in the setup. Okay, that's a lot about the pediatric module. We really wanted to highlight all the great different things it provides. However, there is still a lot more that the device can do during the assessment of all the different ages that you see. What we have done in the suite is also to consider how we can work more protocol-based to simplify all the many workflows you need. One functionality that has been added to support the many different workflows is FreeFill Plus. With FreeFill Plus, you can make a setup with up to 4 speakers, where some of them may be used for one purpose and one for another. For instance, VRA with 2 speakers at 90 degrees, and the other one may be used for cochlear implant assessment, where the speaker is placed at the front and at the back. Running protocol-based will allow you to jump between the different workflows just by selecting the protocol you have in the setup. In the example here, I have a protocol with FreeFill Plus for VRA assessment and one for cochlear implant assessment. This shows that running PC-based offers the ability to build everything up protocol-based. So you have all the advanced assessment you need and can select them just by one click on the test or protocol needed for that particular patient. That is one of the things we have done to acknowledge that we have a lot of different functionality and complexity within audiometry, and that needs to be made simple. While this provided an overview of some of the core new functionalities that have been made available with the Equinox Evo, it is just a small sneak peek of some of the new things. The device contains a lot more of well-known tests such as advanced speech assessment, MLD, ACT, and much more. If you still have questions, please keep them coming in the chat. Before we come to the end of this session, we would like to highlight some of our upcoming training activities. Our Interacoustics Academy has prepared a number of training events where they will cover the aspects and best practice of clinical audiometry. You can scan the QR codes on the screen to sign up. This brings us to the end of our introduction, and we hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to supporting you in the daily work. And so does our local Interacoustics distributors that are happy to help you as well. You can read much more about the Equinox Evo and the touch keyboard on our website. Thank you for participating.